little changes here and there. The only thing constant these days, change. All right. So we're gonna say good morning to Mr. Philcol Jeffers of the Ministry of National Mobilisation. Good morning. Let me just do a little check there.
Good morning, Christine. How
Ah,
are you?
I'm wonderful. I love it when I can hear your voices over there.
Welcome to technology.
I know it's amazing, isn't it? Using it to our benefit here.
Yes,
This
it
is a
is.
very safe space. How many feet apart are we? Like a million, 1,000, 5,000? I just asking away there.
Too
I
too
don't
many. Too, oh, don't worry, I'm at work.
want- so if your boss is watching or listening, you are at work. All right, lovely,
Yes,
lovely.
man. Already at work.
Some
So
people in the
I want to
government.
say thanks. Yeah, I
Yes.
want to say thanks and good morning to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thanks for this opportunity for us to continue to share. As you would recognize that we are looking at the whole issue of domestic violence, but
Yes, we are.
also we have coming up the 16 days of activism in November. But as a ministry, we have to constantly be out there putting the information out so that persons can have access to that information, know where they can get the services that are being provided.
Hmm.
So I guess that is the genesis behind why we're having this conversation this morning.
Yes, 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 yes. I noticed last week I would have looked at an article, read through an article on News 74, speaking about an increase in domestic violence and over 400 males are victims. You would have shared some statistics in that. And we're going to touch on two aspects of domestic violence: what the law states, the rights of the individual, and what is in place to assist persons who are affected by whatever form of domestic violence. All right. And you're working in the right place, Ministry of
Okay.
National Mobilization. And that's the area, well, that's the place that people would go to for assistance. All right. I know that there are quite a number of things that you would love to share, but we have to squash everything down in a very short space of time this morning here. So let
No
us start
problem. No
with the
problem.
statistics, right? Now, I shared last week that there was an increase in domestic violence. Does that statement lend itself to saying there was an increase in reports or an increase in domestic violence overall? And maybe you can give me a summary on the statistics as well.
Okay. All right. So first off, I just want people to know that we're doing a series on VC3 on Monday evenings. So we started last week, and we're going to be back this evening from 5 p.m., where we are discussing the whole issue of domestic violence, how one can access the services, what support services are in place, and so on. So
Mhm.
I'll share with you when we're done with this the flyer for this afternoon's program, because we're going to have the Family Court, the Ministry of Education, and also Marian House, which are support agencies for the program. But
Mhm.
just to give you a recap from what we discussed last week, between January 2012 and April 2020, we
Mhm.
had 1,399 reported cases of domestic violence throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Um, the cases varied over the years. So in 2010, we had two. In 2011, there was two. 51 in 2012, 173 in 2013, 144 in 2014, 36 in 2015, 37 in 2016, 371 in 2017, 273 in 2018, 191 in 2019, and 119 in 2020. In terms of geographic basis, we have 324 of these cases from the Eastern District, and we're talking about police districts here. So that is
Mhm.
from Connery up to Owea. We had 352 from the South Central District, which is Bayabu, Calico, Mesopotamia. 341 in Central Kingston, that is Kingston to Kittals. 94 from the Southwestern, that's between Barley and Vermont. 74 from the Northwestern District, which is Spring Village to Chateaubelair, and 211 from the Grenadines. In terms of the victims of these crimes, 416 were males, 972 were females, and 8 did not state their gender. 218 of those were juveniles. In terms of an educational background, all had attained a primary education. 175 went on to attain secondary, 22 tertiary, and 5 other education, and then we had 1186 did not state whether they went to school or otherwise. And the nature of these offenses ranged from um, physical to verbal. And throughout the years, that was stated 1,020 physical offenses occurred, 205 were sexual cases, 8 were verbal, and 161 were other cases.
Mm-hmm. What is other
Right.
cases? I mean, there's
Well,
physical, verbal, and sexual. Um,
based on the police, they categorize them differently based on the legalities. And
okay.
I'm sorry that I didn't go through that with the officer, but for each of these, we usually have a police who would describe those aspects for them. So you would have a greater understanding of what those reports are.
Okay, okay. All right. I want to zone in a bit on some of the information that you just shared there. In
Mhm.
terms of divisions, why do you think that some of these divisions have more reported cases than others? Is it because of
Uh,
size of the division or mentality or just increase or high cases of domestic violence?
one of it would be definitely in terms of geographical space,
Mm-hmm.
because if you look at the Southwestern Division, which is from um, Southwestern is Connery. No, sorry, Eastern is from Connery to Owia. That's a big area. Georgetown is a big area. Connery, by Byra, those are relatively large areas.
Mm-hmm.
I would hasten to say here, Crystal, that one of the things that we need to understand, these are reported cases. So
Mm-hmm.
this may not necessarily be the truest factors when it comes to domestic violence. These are
Mm-hmm.
only persons who have reported the issues.
Mm-hmm.
I remember on the program last week, I asked the officer, have there been males who have come forward? And she said, yes, there are males who have come forward and would state the issues. The challenge is persons say, oh, the police not doing this and the police not doing that. But here's the problem. A lot of these persons go and they report the matter to the police. And then the
Mm-hmm.
police asks, this is the process that needs to happen according to the law.
Mm-hmm.
And when they start the investigation and they proceed, somebody come back. I don't really want them to go to jail, I don't really want to talk to them, give me please. You get that. And then there are persons who try to do underhand deals in whatever is happening, try to circumvent the law, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the police is asking for persons not to do that. Once you bring the matter forward, let the law do what it has to do because a life is important. And that's one of
Yes.
the things I want people to understand. Today, you may get away. You're not sure if you're going to get away tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say, for example, the perpetrator says to you, Crystal, I am going to kill you. All right.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the police, I'm going to kill you. So there's a fair factor in you going to the police. Now, one of the beautiful things that has happened, and we would soon officially launch, is a short code number 4210. If you dial that number 4210, it goes directly to a line that would answer the case. Now, we also have to be cognizant that the perpetrator sometimes is in the residence with the person while they're making the call. So we have to be very tactful. So the ministry have already trained in some responders to be able to answer the call and be able to navigate. So similar to a 911 setup,
Uh-huh.
we're introducing that type of setup for our short code service, which is a
Okay.
hotline basically.
So
So
who do
if you
respond?
are affected,
Like police or
combination. It's a combination
okay, so
between us and the police, the ministry and the police. But the call would be directed based on the nature of the incident to the
mhm,
first and fastest responder. So
okay.
let's say you're calling us from where you are there in extreme
Hmm.
about something there. We try
Hmm.
to get the closest police to you to respond.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
excellent.
So
I
that is
actually
where we're heading
hmm
in terms of preparation to respond to what has been happening. And we want to thank agencies like UN Women and UNFP and UNICEF who have come on board to support a lot of what we're doing here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we also are thankful for our permanent secretary, one who has been willing and able and leading the way. She's been very supportive in ensuring that whatever needs to happen, that she's giving it her fullest support. And also our minister, Dr. Randy Brewster.
hmm
Um, he also has been pushing to ensure that these things happen from a government standpoint. Is it happening fast enough? I am not able to say that
Well,
because behavior change. Behavior
Uh-huh.
change is not something that happens overnight.
Okay,
What we
okay.
have seen is that we have more persons being willing to report the cases
That's good.
than in previous years.
Why do you think that is?
Part of it is what we're doing here right now. The
Mm-hmm.
education has begun, and persons are understanding their roles and responsibilities. They're understanding how the legal framework is set up to support them. So we even have also where police, well, what they refer to as duty bearers. So it's not just the police. You as an individual here on the radio station, somebody calls in and they said, Crystal, I'm having this problem. I need help. You can call and report that matter and it will be dealt with. Like I
Okay.
said, the challenge is not the reporting right now. The challenge is when the investigation begins, persons are trying to pull back and saying, okay, he's the only breadwinner in the house. How am I going to get support? So all of those are coming into the mix, and the ministry is looking at ways how we can circumvent some of those issues. We have services that are in place that would help, but they are
Before
not.
you get services. Mm-hmm. You said
Mhm.
they are not?
No, no, I'm saying they are not at this stage where, like for example, somebody would compare it to a situation in Canada and in the US. We are not there yet, but the
Okay.
process has begun. Yeah.
Okay. What sort of services that you're are you referring to specifically that you're not there yet with? As in protection?
No,
Or you can
well, through the family court and no, no, no. I could answer, and I'll answer those that I'm able to, and those that I'm not. I can find that
okay.
information out, and I'll get back to you on those. No
All
worries
right.
where those are concerned, Chris.
Okay.
So, in terms of the family court, we have the family court that provides support for us. And so you have protection orders, you have restraining orders, you have tenancy orders, and all of that. So I'm encouraging persons to tune in this evening to the program so that they can get the full descriptive of how those are applied. Last week, what we did, we went through how the law benefits the person. So there
Mm-hmm.
is a legal framework that supports you, the victim, to get assistance. Then we
Mm-hmm.
also have from the ministry the social protection division that provides additional types of support. There are persons who have if you're in a situation where you have to be moved out from the premises, there are things in place to deal with that through the family court, and then the process continues from there.
Okay.
Right? Then you
So
have counseling that is available through the family court, through Marion House and other agencies that we have.
uh-huh.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I want to walk through, let's say man and woman, they have some sort of domestic issue, and I'm going to use the man in this case because in terms of the statistic that you shared, the number of men significantly lower, or maybe you said 400 and some and 972 thereabout
Yeah.
for females. So
The
let's say the
the woman
man is
cases are twice as much.
right, twice as much, right? That's what I'm looking at. So let's say the man in this story here is the victim. So he calls the
Right?
police. What does he have a right to in terms of the law? What happens thereafter?
He's entitled to the same protection order just as the female.
Hmm.
The law doesn't specify one preferential over the other, so no gender has a preference over the other.
Okay.
Where it becomes different and ticklish, it's when children are involved in the process. That is one of the area that it becomes a little ticklish. And when I say ticklish, I mean how it is dealt with, how it is responded to.
Hmm.
But it doesn't negate the man from making a report. There are some of us as men, and I'm glad that you touched that too as well, Crystal, because some
Hmm.
of us as men, we have our ego is bruised when we go to report an issue of, oh, my wife or my girlfriend was abusing me physically or
Hmm.
said stuff to me that hurt. We're afraid to report those things because when you go to the stations and their persons have reported that, and since then we have had training with the police officers, and we've also had conversations with Commissioner of Police Mr. John in regard to how we respond to cases, and we have seen an improvement in that regard. So
Are
the
you trying
police.
to say that police is be laughing at the men when they report issues of
No, no, I'm
domestic?
not trying. I'm saying what had happened before because it was reported and persons calling on this station already and made those comments. So we would have responded to that and asked them, treat each case as an urgent matter, and it doesn't matter
Professional.
if it's a female or a male. be professional in what you do, and we have seen an improvement where that is concerned. But generally, if a man goes to report that case, we're gonna laugh. You and I would laugh that a man come, boy, my woman beat me up and he take a pat and he hit me across my jawbone. We would
Mm-hmm.
laugh about that because society says the man is supposed to be rough, tough, and tumble. He's not supposed to cry. He's not supposed to show affection. He's not supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
soft. So crying is showing that you are soft.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of our men, they can't deal with that. They can't deal with being soft. All right. And so we're afraid of that. And then your friend, but
That
you gonna make your woman do that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Say again?
I said thinking that they are soft.
Yeah,
Tears
yeah,
is
yeah.
not a
And and
weakness.
there and there's nothing wrong with it because if you really want to show how strong you are as a man, there are things that you have to do. You know, there's nothing wrong if you experiencing a level of abuse that you deal with it from the standpoint of saying, listen, I've had enough. I am going to seek help. Sometimes we see counseling as only being when things are bad. Sometimes you just need somebody to talk to.
True.
Situation happen, life happens, and
Mm-hmm.
especially now because if we go back to when the volcano erupted, a number of persons were placed in shelters. I had the experience where I was taking off persons off the wharf in Barley on the night, and there was a couple. The woman decided she's going in a different location from where the man was going. A few days later, there was a big hurrah about what happened. She went in a different location, he went in a different location, and it was a situation of her friend, quote unquote friend, was in this other area that she knew because they had this conversation ahead of time and wanted to go so that she could have been closer to him. When
Mm-hmm.
the boyfriend found out the situation, it became another story, and we had to intervene. We had to have the conversation and say, listen, sit down and let's talk about this thing as two adults. You know,
Mm-hmm.
domestic violence also increased during that time, and now in a COVID environment where you can't go out really, you
Mm-hmm.
can't go on the block and lime as you really want to. There's no real outlet. There's no football game that you can go to, no basketball. None of these things that usually, if your head get hot, okay, let me go watch a basketball. Let me go down the road and take in a soccer. Or let me go
True.
by the bar and chill a five and then come back because I'm gonna be cool by then, come back in. Um, she on the other hand might decide, let me call my girls and we go and have a girls' night out, or let's have a sleepover. These type of things. That is
Yeah.
not happening because of COVID. So tension is high, and along with that, you also have persons who are frustrated because one, they're losing their jobs,
Mm-hmm.
or their income is reduced because of the way that it is being shifted now so that you can accommodate persons. And we are seeing that persons are reaching out to various means. And we have to be cognizant that um, the way how we deal with things. And I applaud Extreme for taking the initiative a lot of the times in dealing with some of these situations. I know on Thursdays you have Thursday drama, but
Yeah.
while you do it in that format, it is very informative. And I would suggest here that you can even go a step further in having somebody who is an expert in some of the areas based on the story that you're dealing with to
Okay.
provide that additional support to what you're doing because I like how you look at things from both angles and
Mm-hmm.
provide that information. But also, just for support, you need somebody who is a professional in the area to be able to guide them along with what you're doing. Because
Thank
if
you in
if you're
advance
not
for
careful,
your input there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The
For
the, the, the thing
volunteering.
is, what we're doing is create I don't man, and I have a network that we can use. There's a
Uh,
network that we can use, and
I'm glad that we create
we have
that
to
link.
we have to be cognizant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have to be cognizant that you are very powerful in terms of where you sit
Mm-hmm.
because you're not speaking to one person here this morning. We are around the world. There are persons who are in other countries that cannot speak out to domestic violence the way that we are talking about it here. There are
Mm-hmm.
persons there because of cultural differences. There are things that are embedded, like in some countries, the woman have absolutely no say in what is done, how it is done. I've seen pregnant women pushing food cart when the man is just walking with his hands in his pocket. Now, in our culture, it doesn't matter how bad the man is, he's going to try and help the woman as much as possible once he's
Mm-hmm.
walking with her. But in
Sure.
their culture, that's our responsibility, that's our job. And so we have to be very careful how we respond and how we treat each of these situations as we go forward. So I'm saying, Chris, good job so far, and again, thanks to Extreme for providing us with another outlet where we can do education. And the Thursday drama, I term it this way. I term it as edutainment, where you provide entertainment, but also you provide education on the issues that are at hand.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you. Now, what I want to ask you at this time, you mentioned quite a bit of stuff then. I hope that people are taking them in. If you want to ask a question on the topic here, 4301043, or you're free to call at 4571043. A lot of people have had and you mentioned it before, the issue of reporting crimes. We're talking about domestic violence, reporting domestic violence to the police, and then withdrawing. Sometimes that
Mhm.
might end up in somebody dying, right? Is there anything in the pipeline to make changes to that part of the law?
Well, the
Once,
law was reviewed 2015.
Mhm,
The problem with it is that if you, as the victim who's reporting the case, decide to withdraw, you have taken all of the relevant pieces from the police because they can't proceed if you don't want to proceed from there. All
mhm,
right. And subject to correction, I don't think that there is any part of the law as it is now that provides that where they can go ahead and prosecute without you giving them the go ahead because
mhm,
you're part of the investigation. You're the one who brought the issue that this is the case. So what they usually do when you go is that they give you a medical form so, where
mhm.
you can get the information. They come back with that medical report and then they do the processing from there. And when it goes through and then goes to the court where it's either go to family court depending on the nature of the matter, or it go to the magistrate court or serious offences court depending on the nature and type of event that is happening.
Okay. That was a mouthful there. Now we're gonna take a break at this time. All right, do with some sort of
No
behind the
problem.
scenes sort of things. I'll take a quick break, get in some arts, play some music, and when we come back, I want to go into it just a little bit more because we don't really have much time this morning. The things that are in place to assist persons who are experiencing domestic violence. Before I go down, question just popped into my mind. Can domestic violence be dealt with without going to the police?
It depends on what it is, but I would say no because the police has the responsibility to take care of what is there. If it is a situation where some verbal issues happen and you
Mhm.
come to us here at the ministry and we can be able to use counseling to go through that, we use the services of Marian House or the family court or one of our support agencies to do the counseling, so it doesn't have to go through the police where that is concerned. But once it's a threat on your life and the physical issues are involved, yeah, the police then has to be involved in that because from our ministry standpoint, we can't deal with the physical issues. We're not certified in that area. The police are the ones who would deal with those bits. But if it's just a matter of counseling, we can deal with it directly from here at the office. We would still report the issue because there's a data collection that is happening. But apart from that, counseling bit, yeah, we would have to involve the police in the matter.
Okay. I want to touch on confidence as well. Some people do not have confidence in the system in terms of their information
Yes.
remaining confidential. What is in place to ensure or to encourage or to give some sort of reassurance to persons who are affected by domestic violence that their information is treated with the highest level of confidentiality?
Okay, let me make one of the easiest part of it. When
Hmm.
you go to make your report, one of the things that you can do as an individual is to take the badge number of the officer who's taking your claim.
Okay.
All right. If
Hmm.
they, let's say, for example, Crystal Oliver is 328, when you go, you ask, officer, what's your badge number? They're obligated to tell you because you're having a conversation, their number. Now,
Okay.
if at any point that information gets out, you have a redress where you can go to the police complaints department and indicate officer 328 was my investigating officer and my information is on the street. I need to know what happened. And the police can and will deal with it from that standpoint. All right. However, there are checks and balances that are being put in place and we are continuing our conversations for persons to indicate what are some of the things they would like to see to improve what is there. We have some issues from UN Women that they're asking us to ensure that happens. And I would encourage persons to go and look at the Beijing Charter and see what is in the Beijing Charter, because that also gives credence to a lot of the work that is being done in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So when we go to these big conferences, they make certain rules and regulations that we implement in country supported by our legal frameworks. And so there are things that would be in place to help that going forward. And as we continue these conversations and person make those claims, the ministry would seek in its best interest to see how we can have the redress to those being done.
All right. Another quick question. I know I said I'm gonna go now. Somebody is asking on the live, does the counseling really work? And after counseling, do the victims go back to the abuser?
Okay. Um, each case is dealt with differently. All right. There are situations where yes, the counseling work, because sometimes it's again, like I said earlier, frustration, and you don't know how to deal with certain things. So coping strategies, coping mechanisms, these are things that have to be dealt with. Um, but going back to the abuser is a situation that we avoid as much as is possible. We work with the two individuals to see how best this can be dealt with. And again, that is why I said to you, Chris, based on the type of abuse that is happening, that's why the police have to be involved. The tenancy order, the protection order, and these sort of different orders that are there to protect the victim, they are there because they recognize that issues like this, going back to the perpetrator sometimes, is basically creating your death sentence. So we try to avoid those as much as is possible. But if it is a situation where basically you both are throwing words at each other, and we bring you in and we have the counseling, they sit down. Counseling goes through a process. It has a series of steps that has to be done. There are things that you are expected to do as the male, as the female, then you do together. So the therapy, there's a whole therapeutic session that goes on over a period of time. Sometimes the persons are separated during this period of time, and
Mm-hmm.
in other times where when it's not possible, as like we one of the lawyer had explained to me in last week's program, in there could be a situation where you have an upstairs and downstairs house. So one party is upstairs, one party is downstairs, and the order is that you don't interact during this period of time to with anything. And there's a legal framework that is added to it that protects both the victim and those who are in the house at that time, and again the perpetrator. So there are things that are there to help each person on it, but it depends on what it is that we are looking at and how the situation is being dealt with that we do. I know persons have been saying that we need to have more halfway houses. There are systems in place which I can't disclose here that is
Okay.
in place to assist when some issues are available. So if it's a situation where your life is at threat, there is a system that would deal with that. But for the purpose of keeping it private, I cannot disclose it here
Okay.
in that, but there is a system that would help you that way.
All right. Okay, lovely. So we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we will highlight the areas and how we can get in contact with you guys and what happens whenever we make a report. Well, we come to you guys for assistance. All right. So we'll take a break and come right back. We
Yeah.
have Philcol Jeffers,